These are the travertine terraces under Hierapolis, Turkey, the Roman city now known as Pamukkale. The Turkish name means cotton castle, and you can see where it comes from. Parapets and battlements of gleaming white stone, deposited by the water of hot springs. Although almost all of Turkey is seismically active, the crust beneath Hierapolis is especially fractured. Water heated by contact with the Earth's mantle percolates upward through these fissures. When it reaches the surface, the superheated water deposits minerals dissolved from the rocks below, forming layers of calcium carbonate. The springs at Hierapolis have attracted visitors and pilgrims for thousands of years. There was a city here during the Hellenistic era, probably founded by the Seleucids or the kings of Pergamon. The ruins visible today, however, belong to the Roman period, when Hierapolis was enriched with a series of impressive buildings and monuments. Many of these, however, are at least partially encased in travertine. A late antique earthquake destroyed the sewer system and shifted the springs, allowing mineral-infused water to spill over the streets. By the time excavation began in the mid-20th century, the center of Hierapolis was buried beneath thick deposits of gleaming stone. The excavators had to use pneumatic drills to clear the ruins. Thanks to their efforts, however, much of the ancient city has been exposed. Let's follow the Plataea, the main axis of the ancient city, to some of the most impressive ruins. Remarkably, the civic agora, the main plaza, has been buried by travertine. The remains now hold a hot, spring-fed pool where bathers splash among the tumbled blocks and columns of the agora's two-story peristyle. Next to the site of the agora is a large bath complex dating to the 2nd century. Well preserved by the massiveness of its travertine walls and vaults, it was repeatedly restored after earthquakes and was used into the Middle Ages. It now houses the site museum. On the other side of the civic agora was this nymphaeum, a monumental fountain that dates to the 3rd century. This would have represented people walking along the Plataea with a gleaming wall of water, framed by richly elaborated columns and reliefs. Behind the nymphaeum was the Temple of Apollo, which consisted of 3 buildings: the Temple of Apollo proper, a sanctuary of Pluto and Kore, guarded by a statue of Cerberus, and the infamous Plutonium, which guarded what was believed to be an entrance to the underworld. Here, poisonous vapor, concentrated carbon dioxide laced with sulfur and other gases, poured from a crack in the earth. Anyone who ventured into the chamber beneath the shrine could see the source, a deep cleft filled with a moan of water, enveloped in poisonous smoke. Only the eunuchs of Kybele, it was said, could breathe that air and live. The theater of Hierapolis probably dates to the reign of Augustus. We see it now as it was reconstructed more than 2 centuries later, in the Severan era. Though restored again by the modern excavators, the structure is relatively well preserved. Besides the usual tragedies and comedies, the theater showed occasional gladiatorial bouts and beast hunts, which is why the orchestra is recessed beneath the seats. In late antiquity, water spectacles were held here. The stage building was originally 3 stories tall and studded with dozens of statues, which must have made it a spectacular backdrop for the Pythian Games, a quadrennial festival that drew athletes from across Asia Minor. The seating capacity is estimated to have been about 12 to 15,000, substantial, but only about half that of the theater at Ephesus. The late antique cathedral of Hierapolis, right ahead of us here, was a large basilica built in the 5th or 6th centuries. The city's most remarkable early Christian monument, however, was on the hill above. This was the martyr shrine of Philip, built in the early 5th century. It's unclear whether this was originally dedicated to the apostle or to a different saint of the same name. This remarkable building consisted of a cross inscribed within an octagon and set into a square, a strongly centralized plan characteristic of martyr shrines. This was not a church, but a place for speeches and services honoring the saint. Philip's bones, however, are no longer here. They were moved to Constantinople in late antiquity. We're now at the north end of the site. Beyond the various fragments of the streets and buildings in this part of the city, we have this vast nymphaeum, the nymphaeum of the Tritons. You can see how wide this was. A truly monumental fountain. Beyond it is the late antique or Byzantine gate, made of reused material from the adjacent forum. Little remains of the North Agora, once a spectacular complex dominated by a vast basilica. This was destroyed by an earthquake, mined for building material, and then buried by sediment from a stream flowing down the hill. In much better shape is the so-called Street of Frontinus, this monumental colonnaded avenue. Like the gate at its far end, this dates to the late 1st century and is named for the proconsul of Asia who commissioned it. Beyond is the North Necropolis, where hundreds of tombs are scattered along the road that led into the city. Many are still buried by travertine, the work of the springs that made and unmade Hierapolis.